Hi, I'm Greg Nutt, and welcome to the American Landscape. Today's show is going to start at the southern tip of the coastal redwoods, and then we're going to travel down into California's central coast. So sit back and relax and enjoy the show. Hi, I'm Greg Nutt, and welcome to the American Landscape. Today, the American Landscape is in California's Central Coast. We stayed the night in Santa Clara and got an early start traveling south in California 17 to the Mystery Spot, which is located on the outskirts of Santa Cruz. Then it's down into Santa Cruz and then north on Highway 9 to Felton to the Capri Tourist Bigfoot Discovery Museum. Then we'll be traveling south on US 101 to King City for the night and then on to Fort Hunter Liggett via Holland Road to the Mission San Antonio de Padua. The first leg of our journey is going to be the Mystery Spot near Santa Cruz, California. Now it's just 41 miles from San Jose, 3.5 miles from the center of Santa Cruz, and 42 miles from Gilroy. We're going to go meet Connell, who's going to be our guide today and tell us all about the mysteries of the gravitational anomalies located at the Mystery Spot. I'm Greg.
Hey, I'm Connell, and welcome to Santa Cruz's world-famous Mystery Spot. Let's head on inside.
All right.
By a show of hands, have any of you been to the Mystery Spot before? Okay, a few of you. You still there? How long has it been since you've been here?
40, 45 years.
40, 45 years. Okay, you still behind him. How long has it been?
About 13 years.
13 years and? 7. Okay, well, guys, just to let you know, it is the exact same gift shop, exact same turnstile, exact same bad jokes on the hill, but I got hired, so lots of improvements.
Can you tell me a little more about how this got started in a little more detail than what we saw on the tour?
Yeah, so originally it was a guy named George Prather, wanted to build a summer home, figured out there's a bunch of weird things going on, so he opened it as a roadside attraction with him and a friend of his. So originally, his friend would stay at the bottom of the hill, would sell tickets, while one of them was doing the tour, and when that guy finished the tour, he'd come down and switch spots. And then slowly word got out, and then once we got our bumper stickers, I'd say that was when it really became a big thing, because we'd give the bumper stickers away for free, so everyone would have them on the cars. Everyone would see them on the cars, they'd come in, started getting busier and busier, and then at one point, the original George Prather died. He gave it to his sons. His sons took over, and they started hiring people and became more of what it is today. But then it really became what it is today when they gave it to their family friend, who's now my boss. And he started doing the more regimented tours, like so we have specific timing, and 5 tours every hour. And then recently, it has actually changed a bit because we added a lot of buildings. We got the gift shop now, we have better restrooms, canteen, a lot of that. I now present to you all the one and only, the world famous Board of Mystery, and the crowd goes, ooh, ah, yes. You guys have actually been my loudest tour so far today. You're also my first tour today. Now you all probably look at the cabin and you all probably start to ask yourselves, why in the world would George Prather build a cabin like this, right? The thing is, he didn't actually build the cabin like this. He also didn't build the cabin here. This cabin was originally built flat and level 77 years ago and about 40 feet up there on that hill. However, about 2 months after it was built, it lost its foundations and it started to slide on down. However, instead of sliding all the way down that hill and getting destroyed, it instead stopped right here. Does anyone have a guess as to why the cabin stopped right here? What is that? The tree. Raise your hand if you guessed the tree. Yeah, high five, you guys.
Yeah.
Woo! Yeah, that is actually completely wrong.
So you have a gift shop, you have a place to eat, we can get snacks here, so if someone doesn't, if they're coming up here for the day, you can feed them?
Yeah, we have a garden area with a bunch of tables and lots of flowers. Our boss likes flowers and plants and stuff, so he brings in a lot. of plants, some pretty exotic ones too, some that we don't even actually know the names of, which is interesting. And the canteen is pretty good food. That's what I eat during the day. And the gift shop is good just if you have time to kill before you tour. It's a great place. And we also have a separate hiking trail that's just for fun that you can also kill time on.
Okay, and video photography, all that's allowed on the tours, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thanks for your time. Appreciate it, Connell. A great tour. And
Thank you.
everybody, come to the mystery spot in Santa Cruz. It's very cool. On the next leg of our journey, it's the Capri Tours Bigfoot Discovery Museum in Felton, California. It's just 40 miles from San Jose, 13 miles from Santa Cruz, and 56 miles from Gilroy. Well, I'm here to see Michael Rugg. He's the curator and owner of the museum.
Well, when I was in school, I attempted to be an anthropologist, but I was hung up on Bigfoot at the time, and they wouldn't let me study it.
And now, have you had a personal sighting of your own?
Oh, well, that happened accidentally when I was a child.
Really?
I was with my parents. So when my dad wanted to go fishing, and my mom wanted to hunt driftwood, which was a big craze back in the 50s, we'd go up to the Eel River. So I was there with them, camping. My dad was making breakfast on the camp stove. He would generally catch some trout and serve them up. When I was 4, I didn't want to eat dead fish for breakfast. So I boycotted breakfast. I went stomping off by myself, following a trail along the edge of the river. Then I stepped out on a sandbar, looking up and downstream. Then I turned back towards the forest. Oh, there's a big hairy man standing there. And he was no more than about 10 yards from me.
Wow.
So I was looking him right in the eyes for about a count of 3 when I heard my mother screaming, "Mikey, where are you?" And so I knew my parents were panicked because they didn't know I had left. So I ran back. I told my mom I was all right. And then I said, "Come and see the big hairy man." And they didn't know what I was talking about, of course, but they were kind enough to give me the benefit of the doubt. And they followed me. And we went back over there, and of course it was gone. And so they said, "Well, don't worry about it. Forget about it. It was probably a tramp." And they said a tramp is a hobo, a homeless person. And their hygiene's not the best. They don't shave every day, so that's probably what you saw. Oh, okay. So I accepted that a tramp is 10 feet tall, covered in hair, and doesn't wear much clothes.
Wow. Now, were you old enough to really be frightened by it, or was it fascinating?
No, I wasn't frightened by it. You see, you have to be taught to fear. You're not born afraid of everything. And in 1949 or 50, which is when this happened, there was no general knowledge about hairy wildmen. And then when Edmund Hillary was trying to climb Everest along with Eric Shipton, late 1951, they photographed footprints on Everest, and then a newsman made a mistaken translation and came up with Abominable Snowman.
Oh, is that where that comes from?
Yeah. So that's when I went and got a scrapbook and started cutting out articles. So that was, in essence, the beginning of the museum.
Other than that first sighting, have you been lucky enough to have another sighting?
Yeah, well, of course, the same year that I was in school trying to study this, I managed to write one paper on the subject. That was just 5 or 6 months before Patterson shot the film.
Oh, wow. So
And he went to the same place I was headed.
So same general area.
Yeah, I was going to go up to the Trinity Alps in the summer between my junior and senior year, bring some friends, hike in, and let Bigfoot find us. I was of the opinion you don't track down Bigfoot. You make yourself conspicuous where he is and let him find you.
A lot of people say, well, you never find skeletons, but I understand you don't really find bear skeletons in the wild either.
No.
So, I mean, that's not really a definitive measure of... if
Well,
there's
absence
something
of evidence isn't evidence of absence.
Right.
Because I can tell you this, we have virtually no evidence of chimpanzees and gorillas during the Pleistocene. In other words, there is no evolutionary history in the form of bones of chimpanzees and gorillas. You have to go all the way back to 13 million years ago to the Miocene, and there you find just all sorts of wood apes all over the world. But these are knuckle-walking apes.
Sure, yeah.
Wood apes. So the connection, that's why they always talk about the missing link. When did these bipedal varieties start? And at the present time, the oldest version of a bipedal skeleton we have dates back about 6 million years ago. So we've been walking upright for 6 million years at least now, and that's only recently been discovered. And you'll find all over Asia and Africa skeletons in the fossil record of upright walking primates like ourselves, and they all have different species names: Homo ergaster, Homo erectus, Homo heidelbergensis, Homo adultu, Homo habilis. I mean, it goes on and on.
You think they're closer to ape or closer to man?
Sasquatches are people, minimalistic, nomadic hunter-gatherers. So they make a temporary campsite in an area, and then when the food plays out in that area, or should a human being stumble onto their campsite, then they move.
So would they move in like a family pod, maybe 2 or 3 of them, adults till they have a newborn, and when the newborn...
Yeah, I don't know if the term pod applies. That's usually applied to supplements.
Yeah, that's probably picking the wrong
to
word,
whales
right?
and things. No, other people have done that.
Oh, okay.
You picked that up probably via Tom Biscardi.
Family?
Yeah, I think that they do. I think that they make nuclear families, mom, dad, and the kids. And in Central California alone, which is our study area, I've got upwards of 300 reports just from Monterey to Half Moon Bay.
Really? That's quite a bit.
And I was surprised that the Bigfoot were still here in Santa Cruz County, because I figured that too many people here now. And we wouldn't know it now if I hadn't opened this museum, because Santa Cruz was not known as a Sasquatch area until the locals started coming in here and telling me. So people who see a Sasquatch, they're dying to talk about it. God, it's a big deal. And they want to talk. And they try, and they get ridiculed. This book came out 1961, and this was the first book on this subject, written by a zoologist who actually toured the world, interviewing eyewitnesses who've seen hairy wildmen.
Really?
And it's a very good book, and I think it's still the best book. This is the latest book by a scientist.
Nature of the Beast.
And this is written by Brian Sykes. Brian Sykes is arguably the most famous DNA scientist in the world. He wrote a book called The 7 Daughters of Eve. He traced mitochondrial DNA around the world and proved we're all related to each other, with a common ancestor 170,000 years ago in southern Africa.
Wow.
See what it says right up here?
The first scientific evidence of the survival of ape man into modern times.
So when Brian Sykes speaks, some scientists will listen.
Tell our folks exactly where you're located and how to find you.
Well, the museum is right on Highway 9 in Central California in Santa Cruz County. We're on the edge of a little town called Felton. It's in the unincorporated parts of Santa Cruz. Across the street from the entrance to Henry Kyle Redwood State Park. And it's got first growth redwoods, so it's a wonderful park. And there's a narrow gauge railroad right next to that called Roaring Camp. So it's a nice place to come and visit. So we get people in here from all over the world because they want to talk about their Sasquatch event to somebody who won't laugh at them.
The Capri Taurus Bigfoot Discovery Museum is an interesting place to visit. No matter what your thoughts are regarding the subject of Bigfoot, if you enter with an open mind, I think you'll find it as fascinating as I did. Michael Rugg is a gracious host and is a walking database on information regarding Bigfoot. Stop in, say hi, and tell him you heard about the museum on the American landscape. And maybe, just maybe, you'll have your own Bigfoot sighting while in the area. On the final leg of our journey today, it's Mission San Antonio de Padua. It's just 85 miles from Monterey, 26 miles from King City, and 50 miles from Paso Robles. What number of all the missions is this? What out of how many?
Of the California missions, the Alta California missions, it is number 3, established in 1771.
Wow.
It's probably the one that is the most pristine in its historical presence. When you come in, the military being surrounding us now has to protect our view shed as we do, and so they cannot build anything that we can see, and so it will always look like it looked in the 1820s. It's like stepping back in time.
Well, that's nice. I understood the missions had to be X amount of walking distance from each other, but this is a long ways from number 2, isn't it?
It is, and actually that's a myth.
Oh.
They were never meant to be a day's ride apart. They kind of ended up that way, most of them, when they were finished, but they really were looking for 3 things when they chose a mission site: water, to sustain crops and people and animals. They were looking for land that could feed all those 3 things, and they were looking for where the people already were that you could convert.
Okay.
And so that's why the sites were chosen where they were.
And I saw the El Camino Real bell out in front, but are we really on the Kings Highway, or has Kings Highway moved a lot to follow
No,
the missions?
actually, the road has changed since then. We are on the El Camino Real. It used to run right through this valley and into what's now King City, into Pine Canyon. If you were to follow the true Kings Highway, it diverts at about Mission San Miguel and follows the river. And so a lot of people have said to me, but the bells are on the 101. And I
Yeah.
said, because if they were where they belong, you wouldn't see them unless you were in a tank on the tank road between Camp Roberts and Fort Hunter Liggett.
I understand too also of the Alta missions, this mission had some unique things that were new when it was built that none of the previous missions had. And what are those?
Definitely. It was the first inland mission. The first 2 were ports. The Spanish government wanted land, and so they secured the coast first and then decided to move inland and start to take more land as the Russians were coming down from the north. So this was the first inland mission. It was the first building in California to have the Spanish clay tile roofs. It was the first mission to use an aqueduct system. We had about 11 miles of aqueduct, all gravity fed from the river. It was the first mission to have a brick kiln, so our facade is much different than the other missions. We have a brick facade that was built in 1812. The first mission without a Presidio, which was a huge issue. And they came first in San Diego and in Monterey, and by the time they got to Monterey, Junipero Serra was having so many problems with the Spanish soldiers mistreating the natives that he went back to the Spanish government and said, at this next mission, there will be no military presence.
Interesting.
And so no Presidio was built, and this was one of the most peaceful missions of all of the 21. 2 Franciscan friars were left to build the mission, and at its peak had about 1,300 Salina Indians living here, and maybe 4 soldiers.
And what did the Salina Indians do before Franciscans? Were they just
They were hunter-gatherers, and the Salinan tribe claimed the land from Morro Rock to Big Sur, and they were there in the spring and summer every year, and then they would move to this valley in time for the acorn harvest and stay for fall and winter and then move back.
So once this happened,
So once this was here, they
stayed.
weren't allowed to move back. They were allowed to go back and visit, and there were probably 500 Indians that worked at the mission that chose not to live at the mission, that continued to live in their villages and just came to work and helped.
And did they use their skills as hunters to,
They
have
continued to
something?
hunt for food, and so people don't realize they weren't forced to move away from what they knew. They still ate acorns, they still hunted for game, and then they learned to eat some of the Spanish foods that the Franciscans brought, and then they were taught animal husbandry and how to raise crops and how to build aqueducts and how to have a food source that was more stable.
Do you have any historic or significant historic artifacts here from over the years?
We have a basket collection here that probably is better than any of the basket collections of any of the missions. It's been several donations from different collectors of Southwest Indian baskets all over the Southwest. That includes maybe 2 or 3 Salinan baskets from the mission itself.
Lincoln, I think it was, right? Gave the mission
Yes,
some of the
gave
missions
them
back.
back. Yes.
But did I read somewhere that he didn't give them all? That some of them went to the church, some stayed with the state.
The
something
churches
like that?
themselves, he gave the property back to the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church then gave them back to the Franciscans, invited them back. So
Okay.
the church itself here was owned by the Catholic diocese. The rest of the facility was owned by the Franciscans.
Okay, and so now you just have the diocese
Right,
here.
just the
And which
diocese.
diocese is it?
Diocese of Monterey.
Of Monterey,
And
okay.
7 of the 21 missions are in the Diocese of Monterey.
Well, it's a pretty big,
Yeah.
big swath of land.
Mm-hmm.
So I was here as a pretty small kid. We kind of did all the missions up and down the state. I don't remember it being in as good a condition as it is now. Has it had some restoration over the years?
You know, in 1948, they did the huge restoration and it rose from the ashes. The church was still standing then, but all of the quadrangle had been reduced to mud piles, and so they rebuilt all of that. They bulldozed all of the dirt out, made new adobe bricks out of the same material, and rebuilt on the old foundation. So that's what we had from 48 until 2.5 years ago, when we started the seismic retrofit, which is state mandated. And so we have been working on that. We have spent to date $7 million, and we have $3 million more to raise to complete it.
If people wanted to support the retrofit or the restoration of this mission, how would they do that?
The best way is to give directly to the campaign board, which is a secular campaign to raise the money for the retrofit. Their website is www.preservemissionsanantonio.org. And if you want to go to their website, you can also go to ours and give directly to a restricted account. And we're missionsanantonio.net. If you do .org, you're going to get the Alamo in Texas.
Okay. You mentioned that on the phone when we talked. You had a retreat center that people can stay here.
Right, and a lot of people don't understand. They think, oh, you have to be Catholic. You don't have to be Catholic. You have to want to stay here for spiritual or educational reasons, which is pretty wide. And you can come on a private retreat just yourself or just your family and spend the night. It's really good for 4th graders studying California missions to come spend a night in a mission. And so the West Wing right now is ADA compliant. The North Wing, we have to raise that extra money to get it to be ADA compliant.
Well, thank you for having us. We've really enjoyed our time together, and the tour of the mission was wonderful. And thank you again.
Okay,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Whoa. We're in Santa Clara. We're at the mission